Hi guys, this is Dr. Sangram Patil here. I was asked to make a video on English speaking. So thanks to those who requested this. My journey of English speaking is quite complex one because I was raised in a village in Maharashtra, and the language of the village was not even Marathi. It was Ahirani. So for children who come from my area, North Maharashtra, we have to overcome this barrier of speaking from Ahirani to Marathi. Our journey from Ahirani to Marathi is not simple. Even today, I struggle to speak so-called standard Marathi. So for me, English is not the third language like for other Marathi speaking students. It was my fourth language. Ahirani, Marathi, Hindi, and then English. So when I moved from village to say block level, from block to district, and from district to a metro city where I did my medical schooling, my post-graduation MD there, and then decided to move abroad after my post-graduation. At that time, a friend of mine had come who was about to leave for the UK, and he started speaking English. And then this was after my MD, I started responding him and I struggled. I couldn't construct couple of straightforward English sentences. This was after having gone through my 11th, 12th in English, then my graduation, MBBS, and then MD, everything was in English, but I couldn't construct couple of sentences. Then I decided to go for entrance exam, English test, IELTS, that is valid for many English speaking countries. Within a span of 6 months, I went for a course, and the lady coach who was on the course, she would meet me for 1 hour, and that was probably 2 or 3 times a week. She will give me a standardized kind of teaching, which was listening, reading, speaking, and writing. That was required for IELTS. And that improved my basic English speaking, my basic understanding about English words, the sentences. I could listen properly and I could make out what was there in the simple English conversations. And then my journey started in the United Kingdom. When I moved here initially, having come from India, I started living with a group of British people, a community there. They were very kind to me. They gave me certain instructions because they were used to see Indians who came from India and lived with them, and they knew what mistakes Indians were doing in speaking. So they warned me about certain sentences. They said, don't say this sentence like this. You have to say it in a proper British way, and the proper British way is like this. So that helped me to understand. But despite this, when I joined in actual job in British healthcare services, initially I used to struggle speaking to the patients because there it's an actual kind of speaking with the native people, keeping their cultural aspects in mind, keeping their vocabulary in mind, keeping their accent in mind, because there are various accents. It's not straightforward British accent. There's no British accent as such. Every county has its own accent. So I struggled, and sometimes with the colleagues in a meeting, I would say something that would sound funny and it would make people laugh. And I have seen that, people laughing at me, despite being a doctor in the UK. So that was my journey. And then it kept on improving. I improved myself. I kept watching people, kept listening to them, kept finding the meanings of words through dictionary or on internet. And then somehow I managed and I've survived in the system. But now from my experience, there are certain suggestions I want to make you all to start speaking good English, to start speaking English, and then later on you can become good at it, better at it, and then excellent at it. So my first request to you is, if you want to speak English, then start speaking English. The first thing you should do is start speaking English. Then whatever amount of how many mistakes you do while speaking English, that's fine. I make mistakes even today after living in this country, in the Britain, which is supposed to be the mother of English language. I make mistakes. So anybody can make mistakes. Even the native people make mistakes in the grammar. They don't always speak correct. So it's fine to make mistakes. Just start speaking. If someone laughs at you, just take it as a feedback. That means you need to improve. You need to keep improving. So don't feel guilty. Don't feel ashamed if you are making mistakes. How will you improve on your mistakes? If you continue to speak and continue to improve. Now, my suggestion and kind request to people who are good at English speaking, and when they are observing others or when they are teaching others speaking English, please do not laugh. Even if there is a big mistake done while speaking, please do not laugh, because the person in front of you is trying hard. So don't make fun of them. Just encourage them. Don't tell their mistakes then and there. Let them speak. Let them commit mistakes. Let them gain that confidence. And then later on, when you give a feedback, you can nicely tell them, ask them, can I give you some feedback? And then you give a feedback in a constructive way, not in a criticizing way that would depress them and that would push them back, so they don't ever think of speaking in English. So we have to be very careful when we are giving feedback to people who are actually keen to speak English, keen to travel that path of being good at English speaking. So these are the simple tips I want to give to this English speaking person who is trying on their best, and the person who is observing. Now, a few suggestions I would make how to go about English speaking. So if you look at Cambridge or Oxford or any university IELTS syllabus that is valid for Canada, US, Australia, New Zealand, all the countries, or any other English speaking countries, then they will test you on 4 standard heads. One is speaking, then listening, and reading and writing. So it depends on what your target is. If you just want to talk English and be good at listening, then you don't have to do writing business. But it is very important that you are into reading as well, because that will improve your understanding of the words. You will get to know how the sentences are constructed, how the complex sentences are made. That's why reading is important. But nowadays you don't always have to read, because a lot of stuff is already available on internet. You can just watch YouTube videos and gain a lot of information that would have normally been available just for, in the books. So listening is important. And what do you do for listening? So in those days, about 10-15 years ago, when I was planning to come to UK, I had no option but to buy CDs from Oxford or Cambridge University for my IELTS exam. And every now and then you would get to sit in front of the TV and then listen to some English broadcast being done, English news, English commentary. So these are all good sources. But nowadays it's so easy. YouTube has everything available. You just type the accent and type of video you want for English learning, and they will be available. So listening from those video podcasts, lectures, cricket match or any other match commentaries, listening through movies, serials is very good way and very easy way. So listening will give you a lot of opportunity to understand how sentences are constructed, how Americans speak, how British people speak, or how English speaking is done in Southeast Asian country or Indian version of English. So you would get to know all this thing through the listening. Now, speaking, again, you should not avoid any opportunities to speak English. My suggestion will be you should reserve 1 hour of your daily routine for English speaking, and make a strong determination that in that 1 hour you will only speak English, no other language. Whatever amount of mistakes you do, whether you understand what the person in front of you is saying, trying to say or not, you just respond to them in English and no other language. Now, English is not India's first language. For most people, it is third or maybe fourth language, like it was for me. But it is a very important language. It is the most useful language internationally, as well as even inside India. It is a very, very useful. Probably in southern, if you look at southern and northern India combined together, English is the most useful, most important language, because Hindi doesn't work in southern Indian states, and in northern Indian states, English can work very well in most places, especially in workplaces or in urban places. So it is a very useful language. It is the most straightforward language to learn and to speak. Believe me, because so many people on this earth speak English. I've been to Arabian countries. I've been to some European countries. I work with Europeans. I work with Africans, Asians, Southeast Asian, and British and Americans as well. Now, in Arabia, there's a massive use of English, because every foreigner has to speak in English with the Arabian people. So most Arabic residents, they speak English, but the way they speak is very short. They construct very short sentences. Change. They don't say, "Do you have a change?" They will say, "Change, no change, thank you." So that's the way of their communication. It's English and it works for them. If you go to European countries, they will have very rubbish version of English. You will feel like, oh, I'm so good. I've learned from English schools in India, or even Marathi schools from India, but at least I listen to very good version of English. I can speak good English. Europeans are very, very rubbish. Africans have their own version, and in Britain also there are various forms of various versions of English. So you have to make your own version and start speaking and keep improving. So once you start speaking, you keep improving by listening, by speaking, by reading, and by getting involved in communicating with others. Don't lose any opportunities. Don't wait for tomorrow to start speaking English. Start speaking it today. It's the easiest, simplest, and most useful language in the world. I hope this all makes sense. I'll try and post few more videos on English speaking to give you simple suggestions and tips. Take care. Happy English speaking. Bye-bye.